the attractive character. All right, so we're going to be talking about how to build an attractive character, the different elements of an attractive character, why an attractive character, and how to really, by the time this class is over, have your attractive character dialed in, mapped out, and ready to integrate within to your marketing. So let's go ahead and dive in. If Zoom will work. JT, that's what I meant earlier. All right, so the attractive character, the key elements in creating an irresistible character that people absolutely love to follow. All right, so firstly, I want to touch on what an attractive character actually is. All right, so essentially what we have to understand is that in marketing, we always hear it over and over and over again. We hear that people buy from people they know, like, and trust, right? Who here has heard that? Let me know in the comment section. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. And what tends to happen when we hear that is we're taught, go create content, go brand yourself, go create a goodwill in the marketplace, go shoot videos, create blog posts, etc., in order to provide value to the marketplace. And when you provide value to the marketplace, people will begin to know, like, and trust you based on the fact that you're providing value to the marketplace. And kind of magically, people's credit cards will levitate out of their wallet, out of their pockets, and naturally punch their numbers in to your order form, and they'll just buy from you, right? There's this kind of assumption that, yeah, if I just provide a ton of content and teaching and value to the marketplace, people will naturally buy from me. And I will never tell you not to create content. I'll never tell you not to, create videos, blog posts, etc. There is a place for that, absolutely. But what's lost in that sentence is the key word of people. All right. So people tend to focus on the know, like, and trust. The truth of the matter is that if we look at it first, where it's the people buy from people, that's almost enough, right? If we have a bond with our audience, if we have a bond with our audience on a personal level, if we have a bond with our audience when our audience essentially knows who we are, what we value, what we stand for, what we stand against, and essentially our audience knows us in a personal manner, there will then naturally be know, like, and trust if we do a few things correctly. All right. And so kind of the assumption that I want you to throw away is if I just create enough content to put it out in the marketplace, people will naturally know, like, and trust me and buy from me. The truth of the matter is that we want to emphasize that people buy from people, and we want to do everything in our power to make our relationship with our audience very personal. And that's exactly what you do with the attractive character. Now, again, this is what I've touched on here. Dan Kennedy talks about the fact that people will opt in, or they'll buy for your content, but they'll stick around for the relationship they have with your attractive character. All right. So people will opt in for your free video. They'll opt in for your free report. They'll opt in or purchase your product for the benefit of your thing. But then after they're in your world, after they're in your kind of ecosystem, after they're part of your audience, the only way you can create a stick factor with that person and then have that person buy over and over and over again is through having a relationship with the attractive character behind the business, therefore allowing the person to have a bond, and therefore creating the desire for the person to stick around based on the actual bond. All right, let me ask you a question. The various people that you follow online, do you have kind of a relationship with them where you feel like you know that person almost at a personal level, right? Let me know a quick yes in the comments box. The people you have the strongest connection with, do you feel like you've heard their story enough where you understand what they've been through? You've heard what they stand for enough where you understand where they come from. You've heard kind of what they've been through enough that you can relate to them, you can identify with them. Yes, exactly. And that's all based, once again, on having an attractive character dialed in. So with that said, let's go ahead and run through the 8 elements of the attractive character. I hope you guys have your pen and pencil out, and let's go ahead and run through these. And as we run through these, think about, the examples that I give, then also think about the examples, or your elements that you'll want to use as you go ahead and craft your own character. So the first element is your identity. All right. Your attractive character must have an identity within the marketplace. And this is essentially how you position yourself within the marketplace. So based on your identity, how you position yourself will be different when it comes to the type of content you create, the type of messaging you put out there, the type of kind of influence you have in the marketplace, and how you interact with the marketplace as a whole. All right. So the four different identities that people usually will kind of look at and categorize themselves as one of is firstly the leader, secondly, the adventurer or the crusader, third, the evangelist or the reporter, and fourth, the reluctant hero. All right. So the leader is the person who's going on, essentially a mission, and he's going to lead his audience with him on that mission. Right. The adventure crusader is the person who, would kind of go on adventures and, in our marketplace would be the person who attends all of the events, goes to all the different masterminds, travels the world, the laptop lifestyle, kind of crusader, essentially taking their audience with them on that journey throughout their kind of experience. Third is the reporter or the evangelist. This is usually kind of the best place to start if you're brand new, because the reporter and the evangelist essentially focuses on bringing other people's value to the marketplace. The reporter is the person who's really passionate about something, who's really excited about something, but they don't necessarily have all of their kind of expertise themselves dialed in yet. And so what they do is they go interview people. They do, podcasts or videos with people, interviewing other people who are already experts in the marketplace, bringing those other people's value to the marketplace kind of through their channel and, of course, to their audience. And lastly, one of the most powerful kind of identities that you can have, but also one of the identities you can't necessarily have when you're first getting started, is the reluctant hero. All right. The reluctant hero is essentially the person in the marketplace who doesn't want to be put out there, doesn't want to be in the limelight, doesn't want to have the attention on him, just kind of doesn't necessarily like everything that goes in to being the leader in the marketplace, but he knows that he absolutely needs to be there for the overall better good of the marketplace. He knows the marketplace needs him. He knows the marketplace, if he doesn't come back and kind of save the day, the marketplace will be in trouble. So he is the reluctant hero. All right. These are kind of the different archetypes that we want to create our character based on. Now, I kind of tend to be a combination of a leader and a reluctant hero, right? I put myself out there sometimes. I tell people I don't love putting myself out there all the time, but, I do it because, again, my people need the value that I want to put out into the world, while at the same time, I'm constantly trying to lead my audience to where they're trying to go. So you can be a combination of two of these. If you're brand new, the reporter is a great place to start. And once again, these are kind of your options. So our assignment really quickly is to make a decision about which one you want to be. All right. You can come back and you can watch this again and you can kind of touch on this again. But once again, come back, focus on choosing an identity and get crystal clear on which person you want to be to the overall marketplace as a whole. So that's the element number one. Element number two is that you must have and share your backstory. All right. So who here, once again, I already said it, but all the people that you follow, the people you follow most, do you know their stories? Do you know my story? Let me know in the comment section. Do you know my story? Have you heard my story, right? Other than me, I'm sure you follow other people in the marketplace. Do you know their stories? Have you heard of the things they've been through? Have you heard of the hardships they've experienced? Have you heard of the stuff that they've been through that is essentially kind of, brought them to a tough place? It's very much like where you might be right now, and then allowed them to overcome it, etc. That's very intentional. So yeses are flying in. Once again, that's very, very, very intentional. So let me see if I can get this to work here again. Here we go. All right. So your story should create identification with your audience. So essentially kind of relatability, identification with your audience, and give your audience a sense of hope for the future. All right. So what we want to do is we want to position our story in a way where our audience sees that our audience has essentially been exactly where we currently are right now, or where our prospect is right now. And then from there, we've been able to break through and we've gotten to the other side. So if our story shows our audience that, our audience then sees, wow, he's been exactly where I am. He's gotten where I want to go, or she's gotten where I want to go. And therefore, it creates a sense of hope within your audience. Your story should be made of pains that your audience can identify with and relate to, preceded by a breakthrough which transformed your life and brought you to where your audience wants to go. All right, or at least started the transformation. The big thing that I want you guys to see here is that I'm always talking about the audience. I'm not talking about sharing your story in a way where you're just talking about yourself and talking about how cool you are, talking about all the accomplishments you've accomplished. You want to work in your accomplishments, but you want to do it in a way where your audience sees that you have been able to go from where your audience might be to where your audience wants to go based on your market research that you've done and based on the clarity that you have about what the marketplace is desiring. Number 3, if you haven't created your breakthrough yet, bring them on the journey with you. All right. So it's not quite as powerful. I'll be completely and totally honest. It's always better once you're already in that spot, but none of us start there. And so with that said, if you haven't necessarily created your breakthrough yet, you want to bring them on the journey with you, meaning you would tell your story in the context of, sharing all the different pains, frustrations, struggles that your audience has dealt with, and then sharing how you maybe found a solution. And based on finding that solution, you're now on the path to getting to where your audience wants to be. All right. So it doesn't need to be, again, you being in that place yet. You can have your audience come on the journey with you. And it actually is extremely effective to have your audience come on the journey with you. The thing that I remember most, the example that I remember most is Mike Dillard was extremely successful in our marketplace, kind of the internet marketing, like MLM marketplace, and extremely successful, had a powerful business. He was ready to move on. He didn't have any experience when it came to investing. He had zero skills when it came to investing, zero experience. And essentially he got up in front of a crowd of people and he said, look, I have no experience with this thing, but I'm going to study this thing. I'm going to get really good at this thing. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do it each and every single step of the way. And just through that invitation to come on the journey with him, he immediately launched an 8-figure business, the Elevation Group. Now, I'm not saying you're going to launch an 8-figure business, right? He had a big audience, but the same can be kind of used and leveraged on a smaller level. And again, you can bring your audience with you. So this is your story. All right. Your backstory makes you memorable and worth following. Spread it through every single piece of your marketing and share it over and over and over again. So you want your story to be in emails. You want your story to be in webinars. You want your story to be, any kind of piece of marketing that you're putting out there, videos, etc. You want to work in your backstory and do it in a way where you always touch on it, but you never overwhelm your audience to a point where your audience just kind of feels like you're always talking about yourself, right? So again, big thing to understand here is that it will make you memorable. So your assignment here is to spend a couple of minutes after, of course, this presentation and get clear on your backstory in the context of our marketplace. All right, write down the assignment, spend a couple minutes and understand, once again, we're creating our story in the context of the marketplace. So we're not just creating, hey, my name is Misha Wilson, I used to play tennis. It's, my name is Misha Wilson. I used to play tennis. I lost everything. I found internet marketing. I struggled a bunch. I failed a bunch. I got evicted. I got kicked out of my house. I, found mentorship. I got started with mentorship. I broke through. Again, the context the marketplace is in, the environment that the marketplace is in, we want our story to be in alignment with where our audience is. Does that make sense, guys? Let me know in the comments section. Does that make sense? And I'll go ahead and move on. And perfect. Yes, 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 yes. Awesome. Let me go ahead and move forward. So number 3 is your attractive character must have a moral code. All right. So just having a moral code will naturally make you more attractive to the marketplace, because really no one has a moral code seemingly in today's world. And if they say they have a moral code, they can very quickly and very oftentimes be found breaking it. All right. So the definition of this in this context, to be crystal clear, is just essentially a body of standards that your attractive character must follow, no matter what the harm or situation of personal harm might occur based on where he's at and based on his own character. Right. So essentially, it's not you doing everything perfect all the time. It's not you trying to do everything right all the time, you getting everything just perfect all the time. That's not having a moral code. Your moral code is you very simply having a set of values that you live by, a set of standards that you live by that you must follow even if it means that you don't make more money, even if it means that you sacrifice something else, even if it means that there's some kind of negative that might happen, because you will not break your overall moral code. All right. So once again, this is not being the perfect goody two shoes. This is very simply you having your own unique code that you live by. So quickly, why you need a moral code. Once again, very few people actually have a moral code, and if they do, they can be found breaking it very quickly. When you have and live by a moral code, it makes you attractive and it makes you stand out as someone worth actually following. You should always be aiming to stand out in your marketing. The single thing that will absolutely kill your marketing faster than anything else is being the same as everyone else, right? Who wants to follow someone who is the same as everyone else? Let me know in the comment section. Who wants to follow someone who is literally the same as everyone else? No one, right? No one wants to follow someone who's the same as everyone else. And so you want to talk about your moral code in order to position yourself as different than everyone else. The key is to figure out what your own unique moral code is and then never break it. All right. So once you figure out what your moral code is, and once you put your moral code out into the marketplaces, this is what my moral code is. This is what I stand for. This is what I stand against. These are my values. These are my standards. Your audience needs to always see that you follow those standards and you follow those values, and you cannot be seen breaking those standards and values. Don't push your moral code down your audience's throat. Instead, essentially let your audience try to adopt it and let your audience try to aspire towards raising up to your level in order to adopt your moral code. All right. So you don't want to tell people you must follow my moral code. You must think the same as me. You must have the same values. You want to share what your values are, share what your standards are, etc., with the marketplace. And then when you share those standards and values, you want your marketplace and your prospects to feel like they have to level up and aspire to be more like you in order to go ahead and adopt your moral code. All right. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments box. Does that make sense? Let me know if you guys are following, and we'll go ahead and continue. Go ahead and type in following if you guys are following. Following. Perfect. Muriel nailed this. Love that. Absolutely. You'll see our speakers use this all the time. Following. Perfect. All right. The biggie is that you want to be intentional with your moral code, and you essentially want to condition your marketplace and condition your prospects in a way where you essentially repel your nightmare customers while simultaneously attracting your perfect customers. All right. So how you do this is you get clear on who you do not want to work with, and you create polarity against those customers in a way that will repel them away from buying your products and services. So who here has ever seen me on a webinar, and at a certain point in the webinar, I say who this is not for? This is not for you if you want to get rich quick. This is not for you if you think that the system is going to do all the hard work for you. This is not for you if you think that you're going to buy this thing and instantly become a millionaire overnight, because that's not how it works. If you have that belief system, well, guess what? It's just never going to happen. And you completely and totally are upside down to your thought process, right? I intentionally, essentially scorn that style of thought process, because when I scorn that style of thought process, two things happen simultaneously. Firstly, the people who have that belief system that I'm scorning, and the key distinction is I'm scorning the belief system, not the people who have that belief system will very quickly be repelled, right? So they won't purchase. But the people who agree with me, and this is the big part, the people who agree with me and the people who have the same belief system will immediately become magnetically attracted to me. All right. So what happens when you share a value with someone and you say, God, this thing drives me nuts, and it also drives that other person nuts that you just shared the value with? You guys have a bond based on having the same common enemy, like I already talked about earlier in the event, right? So whenever you can create a common enemy and you can share that common enemy with someone else, your bond and your, relationship with that person will strengthen just based on having the outside external common enemy. Now, examples here, right? So here's my moral code. Now, this doesn't have to be your moral code. This can just be, again, an example for you to work off of. You could literally be exactly opposite, right? I know marketers who love the hardcore business opportunity marketplace, and their moral code is that they want to freaking get as rich as humanly possible. They want to get rich quick, and they want everyone to get rich quick, and that's their moral code, right? So if that's you, that's fine. But just understand that based on what you put out into the marketplace, you're going to attract a certain type of person. And you want to be clear on who you want to work with before you start attracting the wrong type of individual. So my moral code is no get rich quick, no black hat marketing, and no flashing cash. All right. So who here has ever seen me do a Facebook Live where I have, $50,000 and I'm just kind of like flashing my $50,000, telling people how cool I am because I got 50 grand on my desk, right? You've never seen it because I've never done it because it's against my moral code. And I'm clear on that, right? No wanting the system to do all of the work for you. I already asked you on webinars, do you hear me say, this is not for you if you want the system to do all the hard work for you? Again, it's against my moral code. And I do not want to work with people who get started with the coaching program and then say, okay, I'm started. This thing should be done for me. Where's the money, right? I intentionally say, this is not for you if you want the system to do the work for you, because I do not want to work with that type of person. Hard work is the key to any success in life. I want to work with hard workers. I want to work with people who are dedicated. I want to work with people who are committed to putting in the hours in order to create success. And that's why this is part of my moral code. Always take responsibilities for your successes and your failures. All right. The minute you start saying that something outside of yourself is the reason that you're failing, you're essentially taking all of your power away from being able to create success in the future. And so I intentionally say this because I want people to, once again, be attracted to me who feel the same way. So I work with like-minded people who I actually enjoy working with. Investing in yourself is the highest form of entrepreneurial maturity. I completely and totally wholeheartedly, believe that. And that's why I put this into my moral code: substance over style. All right. I'm all about substance, a little bit about style. You want to have some style in your marketing. You want to have, again, your attractive character from a style perspective dialed in just a little bit. But again, this comes down to, I'm not all about flash, right? I have a nice car and I show it sometimes, but I'm not out there on Instagram sitting in front of a Ferrari taking photos on my Ferrari, because that's not who I want to be within the marketplace. All right. Last, let your results do the talking. All right. So it's infinitely more powerful to create a result and share the result you've created than constantly telling people how good you are, how cool you are, how strong you are as a marketer, etc. Let your results do the talking, and you essentially position yourself correctly within the marketplace, and people will actually want to follow you long term. So this is my moral code. You can take what you want from it. With that said, be sure to create your own as well. Next, you must have and admit that your character essentially has flaws without asking for sympathy. All right. So let me ask you this. How do you feel when you follow someone and they're absolutely perfect? Let me know in the comment section. How does that make you feel when you follow them and they're absolutely perfect? And it's kind of like, oh my God, this person never does anything wrong. This person has zero, weakness. This person has zero vulnerability. This person has zero weak. They're just kind of like a machine, right? Exactly. It makes you feel like you might not be able to create success. It makes you feel like the person isn't necessarily real, almost unbelievable. James, exactly, right? Skeptical. Ruben, love it. So again, when you share your flaws, when you share your down moments, when you share kind of the things that have happened to you that might be weaknesses, but also how you've overcome them, what you do is you make your audience understand that you're a real person. All right. You create more relatability with your audience based on the fact that your audience understands that there's no such thing as a perfect person. So why are you trying to be perfect with your marketing as a whole? So a superhero with no kryptonite isn't interesting. Being perfect isn't interesting. Your character flaws are your version of your kryptonite. Your character flaws should also be flaws that your audience struggles with. And in you sharing that you have and struggle with those same flaws, you'll create a sense of empathy while essentially showing them that you've overcome them. All right. So they'll understand that you truly feel and understand their struggle. All right. The thing about human beings is that even though usually 99.9% of the time there is someone out there who has been through something infinitely harder than you, people always tend to feel like no one can understand how they feel because no one has been through what they're going through. Right. And so we want to, once again, have character flaws that are in alignment with our marketplace and their character flaws so that they see and understand that we truly understand their struggle, which creates empathy. The key is to not be held back by your character flaws. So understand what it feels like to have them, but be the individual who's figured out how to overcome them and be unstoppable. All right. So be essentially the superhero that still feels and understands what it feels like to be the average Joe. All right. So in sharing your character flaws that your audience can relate to and how you've learned to overcome them, your audience will aspire to be more like you, which is the ultimate achievement in your marketing. All right. If you can have your audience aspire to be more like you through wanting to adopt your moral code, through wanting to level up and overcome their character flaws like you've been able to do, etc., that will create aspiration. When your audience aspires to be more like you, guess what? They're going to buy from you over and over and over again. If your prospects want to be like you, do you think that they'll buy from you? Absolutely. All right. So here's some examples of my character flaws: procrastination, perfectionism, fear of failure, laziness, horrible on the phone, can't do anything technical to save my life. Now, let me know with a quick yes in the comment section. I'm going to get a quick drink of water, but let me know with a yes in the comment section if you've ever heard me talk about procrastination, struggling with it, perfectionism and struggling with it, not being good with tech, right? Let me know with a quick yes as I get a drink of water. And let me open up the comments section here. Yes, all the time, right? So I constantly share how I used to, be a perfectionist, but then I talked to my mentor and my mentor said that perfect is the enemy of done. And sometimes it just has to be good enough. I tell that story over and over so that people understand that I used to deal with the same thing that they deal with, but I managed to overcome it. Once again, showing them kind of that, not necessarily that I'm the superhero, but positioning myself as the superhero who still feels and understands what it feels like to be the average Joe. So you can use these. These are good for our marketplace, but also you essentially want to have character flaws that are also true. All right. So if you're really good at tech, don't just say that you're not good at tech so that it's something that people can relate to, right? If you're really good at closing on the phone, don't say that you're not good at closing on the phone just because other people can relate to it. Get clear on what your unique, authentic character flaws are and message them in your marketing, but also message how you managed to go ahead and overcome them. All right. So your assignment after this training is to spend about 10 minutes, get clear on your character flaws, dial them in through the context of these are things that I might be struggling with right now. This is how I'm going to overcome them. And this is how I'm going to share with my audience how I've overcome them once again in my marketing. All right. So that's number 4. Number 5 is that you must create polarity. All right. I almost hate this word with the current environment in the world right now, but I have to include it when it comes to marketing. All right. And let me know in the comment section real quick. I'm curious. Let me know in the comment section. This guy over here on the left, type in love him if you love him, or you don't actually have to share this. This guy on the right, let's go with him, right? Conor McGregor, type in love him if you love him, type in hate him if you hate him. All right. And I'll share the lesson here in just a minute. All right. Hate him, love him, love him, love him. All right. Hate him, love him, love him. All right. So we're getting a lot of love hims and a lot of hate hims, right? We're talking about Conor McGregor, of course. Now, these are two of the most, one is from obviously politics at this point. One of them is from athletics, right? These are two of the most polarizing figures in their own individual kind of realms and worlds. Now, essentially what's powerful about polarity is that when you have a group of people that absolutely loves you, or that absolutely hates you, you'll also have a group of people that absolutely loves you. All right. So based on the comments that I just read off back to you, you guys can probably see the comments right now. There's a lot of love him and a lot of hate him, right? There's very little yeah, I don't really care, right? Like when it comes to Conor McGregor, if you're a UFC guy, you either love him or you hate him. Now, let me ask you this. If someone just kind of says, yeah, Misha, he's kind of, I don't really know what he's that good at. I don't really feel one way or another about him. Is that person going to buy a bunch from me? Let me know in the comments section. If someone has that kind of thought process towards me and my marketing, do you think that person's going to buy everything I have to offer? No, right? In order to have someone come through a process and want to buy everything you have to offer, they have to absolutely love you. And in order to absolutely love you, there has to be a group of people that also doesn't love you. Now, there's a right way to do this and a wrong way to do this, and I'll get into that in just a minute. Let me go ahead and move on here. When you're polarizing, whether people love you or hate you, they'll continue to tune into your message and talk about you. And this is a big thing that I want you to get. Conor McGregor being the perfect example, or Trump, right? Both of those people, the people that absolutely hate him, even though they absolutely hate him, they still constantly talk about them. And when you constantly have people talking about you, you naturally will have more and more attention. When you naturally have more and more attention, your audience will grow virally. All right. So naturally, when you're polarizing, people will talk. When people talk, your audience grows. Would you rather have 5,000 people kind of sort of like you, or would you rather have 50,000 people tune in, half of whom absolutely love you and half of whom absolutely hate you? All right, let me know in the comments section. And this is a tough one for people, right? Because you have to be okay and you have to be all right with the thought of someone absolutely hating you. And a lot of people don't want to have that kind of, attention from anyone at all. And therefore, naturally, they're hesitant in kind of adopting this approach. But the truth is that it is infinitely more powerful to have 50,000 people tuning in and have 25,000 of them being loyal followers who absolutely love you than having 5,000 people, or for that matter, 100,000 people just kind of sort of saying, oh, okay, he's all right. Right. But the truth is that if you have that polarity on both sides, you'll naturally have a bigger audience, because once again, people will constantly be talking about you and spreading what they feel about you one way or another. All right. So more examples of this at work. Howard Stern, right? People tend to absolutely love Howard Stern. People tend to absolutely hate Howard Stern. Two different sides of the equation. What happens either which way? Right? People tend to tune in. People tend to listen to Howard Stern, right? Maybe less than before, but again, still a ton. Rush Limbaugh's passed now, right? But used to crack me up. I mean, my dad couldn't stand Rush Limbaugh, and I grew up, listening to my dad absolutely hate this guy. And every single morning, he'd still listen to him. Right. And I was just a little 10-year-old kid going, well, why the hell are you listening to him if you absolutely hate him? And every time we drive to school, my dad would be listening to Rush. My dad would be passionately disagreeing with Rush. Right. Yet still he would listen to him all the time. All right. And so when you're polarizing, whether people love you or hate you, they don't ignore you. And when people don't ignore you, you will naturally have a bigger audience. Now, again, there's a right way to do this and there's a wrong way to do this. So we don't want to just say, all right, I'm going to be polarizing. I'm going to go say a bunch of inappropriate stuff in my marketplace and therefore get a bunch of attention. That's a very short-lived polarization that leads to zero sales. All right. So the right way to do this is to define clearly, just like with your moral code, define clearly what you stand for and define clearly what you stand against. All right. When you stand against and for something, and you're specifically, once again, for and against something, you will attract people in a certain way, just like your moral code does. And you want to do this in a certain way where you condition your prospects to buy condition your perfect prospects to buy your products while repelling your nightmare customers. All right. So just like with your moral code, let me run through this. All right. What I stand for: investing in yourself, constant learning, freedom, lifestyle, investing in yourself, mastery of skill sets, continual growth, doing the work, and investing in it yourself. All right. Now I've put investing in yourself 3 times because I truly do stand for that, believe in that, continually do it myself all the time. But also when my audience believes in investing myself is the right way to go, What do you guys think? Is it more likely that my audience will purchase from me or less likely? Let me know in the comments section. Do you think more likely or less likely? If my audience believes that they need to invest in themselves, which is 100% true. So never lie in your marketing, never mislead people, right? But yes, it is more likely. And so I have that as part of my moral code. Now, what I stand against, just like with, once again, my moral code elements, get rich quick, flashing cash, wanting the system to do all the hard work for you, refunders, blaming the system for lack of results, laziness, etc. These are all the things that I stand against. So I constantly talk about, once again, how I do not want to work with people who have these traits, and therefore I, simultaneously push these people away while also attracting the people who feel the exact same way. Now, what do we think the easiest way to create polarity the right way is? Let me know in the comment section. What do we think the easiest way to create polarity is the right way? All right. And I'll guide you guys here, but the easiest way to create polarity the right way is to scorn behaviors that you stand against. All right. So as an example, and the key that I want to share here is that you want to scorn a behavior. You don't want to scorn a person. Right. So let's say you have someone come through and you don't stand for people refunding after they go through programs, right? Which I hate. I hate when people buy a product, go through the entire product, wait till day 29 of a 30-day refund period, and then refund. I can't stand it. Drives me nuts. It feels like they stole my intellectual property. Right. And so when someone does that, I don't take the photo of the person asking for the refund and put it on Facebook and rip into the person. I scorn the overall behavior. All right. So not to be political, but to use a political example here, the fastest way to build a relationship with a Democrat is probably to scorn Republicans and Republican belief systems, right? On the opposite end, the fastest way to build a relationship with a Republican is probably to scorn a Democrat and a Democrat's belief systems, right? It's infinitely more powerful to scorn the other side than to say, yes, I'm a Republican too. Yes, I'm a Democrat too, right? If we can create that common enemy within our marketing and not do it from a political way, but just do it essentially from what I'm talking about with what you stand for, what you stand against in the context of the marketplace. And if you can create, once again, polarization against certain behaviors that you don't stand for, the people who agree with you will naturally feel much stronger of a connection with you. In openly sharing and intensely scorning what you stand against, you become magnetic to people who share those same views. All right. So they become loyal fans. We do not want email list subscribers. And that might shock you guys, right? You've been telling me this entire time to build my list. Your list is your single most valuable asset. I have been, right? The truth is that we don't want just email list subscribers. We want people on our email list who are loyal fans. And how we create loyal fans is by implementing and executing upon the attractive character. It's better to be magnetic to some and disliked by others than to be thought of as just okay by everyone. When everyone just kind of thinks of you as just okay, guess what? No one knows who you are. No one follows you. No one tunes in. And no one pays attention. If no one's paying attention, no one's going to purchase. So your assignment after this call, of course, is to go ahead and take some time and get clear on, within the context of the marketplace, what you stand for, what you stand against, who you're going to polarize towards you, and what behaviors you're going to polarize kind of against you, and essentially get clear on what your perfect customer avatar will be in alignment with, so that you can attract your perfect customer avatar moving forward. All right. Let me know, guys, are you guys getting value? Let me know in the comment section. Type in hashtag value if you guys are getting value in the comment section. Let me know. Type in I see if you guys see some of the different things that I do in my marketing now, right? You guys are probably seeing quite a few of the different things I do on webinars, on events, in emails, in videos, in everything that I do. And it's all based on the fact that I've taken the time here to go ahead and build out my own personal attractive character. Thank you guys for all the interaction all the way into Sunday afternoon. That is awesome. And perfect, guys. Let me go ahead and move on. So number 6 is the attractive character teaches using stories and parables. All right. So The big thing to understand here is that people remember stories, they forget how to content. All right. So what has been, passed through generation over generation over generation over generation? What's the thing that we always hear, being told around the campfire? Stories, right? People remember stories, they forget how to information. And so within your marketing, if you position yourself as the person who's always just giving more how-to information, what you're going to do is you're going to essentially position yourself as a dictionary. All right. Now, let me ask you a question. Who here, let me know with a quick yes in the comments box, who here loves to sit and read a dictionary all day, right? I know I don't. That's the last thing I want to do. But when you're constantly just creating more how-to content, that's how you're positioning yourself. Where on the flip side, if you use stories in order to share lessons, you're essentially positioning yourself more as an entertainment-based kind of, education plug that people want to tune into. If you look at just kind of human nature in general, people watch, I believe, 6 hours of TV on average, which is absolutely insane. And they read about 1 book per year. And we wonder why we're in trouble, right? So they read 1 book per year and they watch 6 hours of TV a day. And still, we're creating content nonstop with our marketing, positioning ourselves as the book. We want to position ourselves as kind of the show, the Seinfeld show that gives entertainment, allows people to tune out of their daily struggle, their daily life, and just kind of, once again, tune into something that they're entertained by. And we do that using stories. So here's a few storylines. I'm sure you've seen me use these. A loss and redemption, right? Lost something, lost all of it, redeemed yourself, got to the other side, ended up, in a better place than you were before. Us versus them. This would be a story where you'd essentially tell a story that would kind of create polarization. And you would talk about, your people are like this and the people on the outside are more like this, right? So telling a story that creates us versus them illustrates your moral code and the polarity that you want in your marketing, in order to create more of a relationship with your audience. Very simply, before and after, right? Before I found this thing, my life was really tough. After I found this thing, my life is, completely and totally amazing. Amazing discovery. This is the actual story of discovery that you go through, which ends up changing your life. Secret telling, right? So whenever you have a secret, it's extremely powerful in your marketing to go ahead and, allude to the fact that you have a secret and tell the story of how you stumbled upon the secret and how the secret has changed everything for you, etc. People want to learn the secret. And so if you tell that story, it will be extremely captivating. And third person testimonial, right? Whenever you have a testimonial, guess what? Mail it to your list. Whenever you have someone talking good about you, mail it to your list. Whenever you have any little piece of good positive reinforcement, take it. Little kind of, side note, every single time you get any kind of social proof, I would highly recommend creating a Google Drive or a Dropbox file, guys. Take a screenshot, put in your Google Drive file, put in your Dropbox file. I have the entire team here at SAN. Every single time they see anything positive on social media or anything in between, we have a Google Drive and a Dropbox file. We take screenshots, we put it there. Whenever I need social proof, guess what? I literally have testimonials for days because I'm aware of this. And I know the value in having third-party testimonials. So use these as your storylines. And ideally, every single story should have a lesson, and every lesson should have a story. All right. So if you have a bunch of lessons without stories, you're going to come off as very dictionarial, right? Very just kind of, let me just give you information that people get bored with. If you have a bunch of stories without lessons, you'll come off usually as the person who's always talking about themselves, right? Because you're telling stories about yourself, but you don't have a lesson within. If you tell a story about your life and you're talking about yourself, but it has a powerful lesson that your audience gets value out of when they learn and when they understand, people are okay with you talking about yourself because you're telling the story in a way that shares a lesson that, of course, leads to them getting more value. All right. So just remember 80-20. We want some just straight information because there's a certain small segment of our audience that just loves getting direct information. But even if your audience is telling you, I hate stories, I don't want to hear any stories, the truth of the matter is that human nature shows 80% stories, 20% how-to information. Just make sure that your stories actually have lessons within, and that's the ideal best formula. So your assignment here is to get clear on the stories that you want to go ahead and tell. All right. Spend a couple minutes and think about, the different experiences that you've been through and which lessons you've learned from those experiences and what stories you can tell based on those lessons. All right. And if you do that, once again, you'll be able to share that story and show that lesson and kind of share that lesson with your audience in a way where they get it. And once again, you'll create more goodwill with your audience long term. Number 7, your attractive character has superpowers. All right. So what is a superpower? Essentially, a superpower is the ability to do what others cannot do or will not do. All right. So the ability to do what others cannot do or will not do. The big thing to understand here is that even if you feel like, God, I need to be humble, I can't talk about myself, I can't brag, etc., I completely and totally understand. The thing that you have to understand is that your prospects want you to have superpowers. No one wants to follow the average Joe. All right. We don't want to tune into and listen to the person who hasn't accomplished the big thing we want to accomplish. We want to tune in and listen to the person that, oh my God, he can, let's say in the network marketing world, he can recruit thousands of people without ever picking up the phone. Or, oh my God, he can host webinars and he can make $1 million worth of sales in just 90 minutes. All right. Now, who here would love to learn from and love to follow someone? Let me know with a quick yes. Who here would love to learn from and love to follow someone who can make $1 million in sales in just 90 minutes? Is that exciting? Let me know in the comment section here. Does that excite you? Does that sound good? Yes, I would, right? Those are the type of people your prospects want to follow. The big thing is that your superpowers must be congruent with what your target market wants. All right. So again, your superpowers cannot be essentially something you think is really cool, but your audience doesn't care about. Your superpower has to be in alignment with what your market wants. So, examples. And again, this makes your audience want to aspire to be more like you. When you have superpowers that your audience wants, your audience then says, God, if I could just be more like this person, my life would be easier. When they say that, when they aspire to be more like you, they're infinitely more likely to purchase from you. All right. So examples, I use this in my marketing a lot. The ability to bring hordes of cold traffic wherever I want, on demand, right? That's a superpower that my target market really wants. Who here wants to be able to bring tons of traffic wherever they want, whenever they want, right? That's extremely attractive to my marketplace. So I share it. The ability to convert that traffic into high ticket customers and a loyal following who buys everything I have to offer. That's something that's attractive to my audience. And so I share it as a superpower. The ability to write emails, produce thousands of dollars on demand, right? Who here thinks it would be cool to sit and write an email for about an hour, right? Or half hour even, write the email out, click send, and literally watch the sales roll in. That is the absolute dream. And, fortunately over the years, I've been able to pick up and learn that skill set. And so I share the fact that I have that skill set because my marketplace wants that skill set. The ability to host webinars that result in 6-figure paydays, right? So this is an example that I just used. Everyone wants to follow the person who, oh my God, he can make 6 figures in 60 minutes. It sounds like the dream, right? Something that my marketplace wants. An example from my old mentor, Dagan Smith. Dagan was the king of never calling a single lead. All right. That was in the network marketing world. And in the network marketing world, the idea of being able to recruit and build a team, build an organization without ever picking up the phone, that is the ultimate dream. And so he made an identity. He created a whole identity around being the king of never calling a single lead because, once again, it was a superpower that was in alignment with what the marketplace wanted. All right. Now, when it comes to using your superpowers, there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. So don't brag about your superpowers. Instead, tell stories and create content and let your audience come to the conclusion that you have them. All right. So I would create a story or, a piece of content where I would share my 6-figure webinar formula, right? And in that blog post, let's just say I would write out the kind of formula and the approach that I use in order to make 6 figures in an evening. And so essentially the message would come off as good content, But my audience would naturally say, wow, Misha can create webinars that does 6 figures in 90 minutes, right? Where if I just go out there on Facebook and I say, congratulations, Misha, talking about myself, you just had a webinar where you did 6 figures in 90 minutes. Awesome job. That looks like I'm just patting myself on the back. Right. So we want to avoid patting ourselves on the back, and we want to essentially create valuable content and share stories that allows our audience to come to the conclusions themselves that once again, we have these superpowers. From there, once we do that, other people will become aware of our superpowers, and we want to let other people build us up. And we never want to deny that our superpowers exist. All right. So reluctant heroes are still heroes. So what'll happen is when you share, as an example with all of these, right? I've shared this in my marketing so many times that when I go, or when I used to go to live events, in-person live events, right? People would sometimes want to interview me for content, etc. And they'd open up the video and they'd say, this is Misha Wilson. He's one of the best traffic experts on the internet, right? And, in that interview, I'm not going to say, no, I'm not, right? I'm going to humbly say, thank you. And essentially, you always want to be humble in essentially being okay with having that superpower. Be the reluctant hero, but still be the hero. All right. Humble arrogance is key. Allude to your superpowers with stories, and then never deny having them when other people bring them up. Your prospects want you to have been like them in the past, but to now have superpowers that they wish to have. All right. It sparks hope for the future. And so as an example, with all of these, right, I used to not be able to get any traffic. Now I can bring tons of traffic wherever I want. In sharing that superpower with my audience, it creates a sense of hope for the future because my prospect sees that it's possible to get where they want to go based on the fact that I'm telling the story of having the superpower and essentially starting exactly where I was. All right. So your assignment is, look, I know that you might not have that superpower yet, right? So if you're just getting started, I completely and totally understand. None of us start with superpowers. But with that said, spend some time and get clear and write down what all of the various kind of superpowers you think the audience would want to have, and the superpowers that you want to have as the goal of attaining. All right. So do you think the audience wants to learn how to write emails that makes tens of thousands of dollars? If you do, that would be a good goal to have as a superpower. Do you want to, be able to essentially get traffic whenever you want? And the nice thing about this assignment is if you can just think about, what do I really desire most when it comes to the marketplace? If I could get tons of traffic, I could convert a bunch of sales, I could host webinars, right? Whatever that might be. Whatever you desire most right now, other people in the marketplace probably are, and they're good goals when it comes to overall superpowers as a whole. All right. And last, but certainly not least, let me get a quick drink of water. The attractive character has the Godfather position. All right. And this is essentially fear of disappointment. So if you watched The Godfather way back when, right, one of the best movies ever, if you watched it, there was fear, but there was also immense respect. All right. So people feared the Godfather, but they were also extremely appreciative of the Godfather. He was constantly helping people in his own way, and he had immense respect from everyone based on having fear of disappointment. All right. So you essentially want to be the person that your audience is afraid of disappointing. When you do everything else that we already talked about thus far, when you create a moral code, when you create polarity, when you consistently message what you stand for, what you stand against, when you scorn bad behavior, when you share your superpowers, and you do everything we've already talked about, you will essentially get to a point where you position yourself as the Godfather to your audience. And then it's up to you to maintain that position. How you maintain that position is you express disappointment in your audience when they don't rise to your standards. All right. So let's say your audience is in the internet marketing world and your standards are, if you want to be part of my herd and my following, we're not out there flashing $100 bills. We're not out there, with pictures of Ferraris everywhere. We do this the right, moral, cool way, right? If that's your standard, when your audience does the opposite, you express disappointment. All right. If your standard, your moral code says that, again, let's say you absolutely can't stand people who buy a product, go through a product for 29 days, get a refund on day 30 after going through the entire product and implementing what they learned. If you can't stand that, which I can't, When that happens, what I'll do is I'll take an email, I'll create a blog post, I'll shoot a video, whatever the medium is, I'll tell a story about that happening, and I'll express disappointment in the fact that someone in my audience, someone in my tribe, essentially, kind of stooped the level that was beneath my standards. All right. So we want to create the standard that our audience wants to aspire to live up to. And then we want to express disappointment when our audience doesn't. Let your audience fear letting you down. All right. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments box, guys. Does that make sense? Are you getting value? Let me know. Hashtag value if you guys are getting value. This is literally $1 million lesson for me. All right. When I learned this, I essentially went from having an email list that actually bought. And there's a huge distinction between having an email list and having an email list that actually buys. And I hope you guys understand the value of this lesson. Awesome. Yes, it does. Value, value, value. Perfect. Awesome. Let me go ahead and move on here. Being the Godfather not only makes your audience more responsive, but it also makes your audience more appreciative and more likely to spread your message virally. All right. So circling back to the actual movie, The Godfather, again, The Godfather was feared, but at the same time, people had immense appreciation for him. His people, not the people he was killing, right? But his people had immense appreciation for him, what he did, and what he essentially provided to the community. And they constantly talked about him, and they constantly talked about how good he was for the community, right? Now, the people he was against, different story. But in marketing, the same thing. Obviously, we're not going to kill anyone, but in marketing, we want our people to be constantly talking about us. We want our people to be appreciative. We want our people to be responsive and appreciative and talking about us, while at the same time, we want the outsiders to not necessarily like us. All right. We want that polarity, because in that polarity gives us the ability to have a more loyal audience, because we stand for and because we stand against one thing or another. All right. So scorn the behavior, not the person. All right. So this is, again, one of those things when it comes to doing this thing in a cool way or doing this thing in a not so cool way, but essentially understand that one positions you as a leader. So when you scorn the behavior, and when you talk about this is the type of behavior that is bringing, the overall marketplace as a whole down. You scorn behavior, it positions you as a leader in the marketplace. When you scorn a person or an individual, it just positions you as a tyrant. All right. And again, we don't like tyrants. And so scorn the behavior, not the person. So your assignment here is, once again, really for this specific kind of element of the attractive character, it all circles back to getting crystal clear on your standards, what you stand for, what you stand against. And then when you get crystal clear on that, you'll then know what to scorn moving forward when people don't go ahead and elevate their own standards in order to live up to your standards that you go ahead and set. All right. So to recap, let's go ahead and go over all of them. You must have an identity within the marketplace, which once again gives you the ability to position your message in a certain way that's attractive to the marketplace. You must have and share your backstory. Your attractive character must have a moral code. You must have and admit to having character flaws, ideally that your audience struggles with as well, without asking for sympathy. You must create polarity. So you want your audience to absolutely love you. In order for that to happen, you need some of the marketplace to absolutely hate you. That's a totally fine thing. The attractive character teaches using stories and parables, 80% stories, 20% content. The attractive character has superpowers, and the attractive character has the Godfather position, fear of disappointment, and of course maintains the Godfather position. So with that said, guys, did you get value? Let me know in the chat box. Did you guys get value? And let me go ahead and see. We are on to the home stretch here in day 3. Let me know, did you get a ton of value? Type in tons of value if you got tons of value. Amazing value, awesome value. Yes, yes, tons of value, awesome. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for the interaction. It's awesome to have so many people on here still heading into day 3. And I will go ahead and hand this back off to the one and only JT. Take it away, brother.